Hello, coffee lovers. My name is Russell Volts from Lake City Coffee. Today we're going to talk about three things that have a lot in common, and that is great food, great wine, and great coffee. Now, why pick these three? Because they go very, very well together, and a lot of the tasting, selecting, maturing your palate is very common amongst the three. So I'm going to tell you the story of how we actually got into the coffee business, and it started with food. Alisha was taking a lot of food preparation, chef classes, learning how to cook exotic things, learning how to taste test as she goes along, etc. And once, we're eating really, really well, right? So we thought, geez, we ought to be drinking wine that pairs well with whatever we're eating. So we started taking wine classes. And this is every single week, and we've been doing this for, close to 10 years now. And it's mostly not just to pick out good wines, but to be able to tell one good wine from another, what pairs well with something else. How do you pull out of this wine notes of cinnamon, notes of blackberry, notes of, whatever, barnyard, for crying out loud. How do you pick those kind of notes out? And after years of going through wine and food and developing our palates and developing our taste and understanding pretty much what we're doing, we said, wait, why don't we take this to the breakfast table with our coffee? This is before we even owned a coffee company. And over time, we took those same taste testing skills and learned how to create a coffee that's second to none. Now, I'm not going to talk exclusively about coffee, but we're going to talk about a variety of things. Let's start with talking about why are these things kind of important to us. One, stress kills. One of the things that gets rid of stress is satisfying your taste buds, satisfying your desire for comfort food. And this to us is comfort food, thus reducing our stress, making us more healthy, etc. To do all that, we need to train our palate. It's kind of like training your dog to heel. Your palate is kind of like that. Your dog isn't born knowing how to walk on a leash, and neither do your taste buds. You need to teach them and to train them. Take the time and the effort to pay attention to what you're eating, focusing on those nuances and the things that you're tasting. I mean, to learn the difference between 2-buck chuck and a Rhone Valley GSM it seems like a huge step, but there's a bunch of little steps like learning anything else. You'll find on most wine bottles on the back will have tasting notes, or you can go online and the experts will tell you what they taste in this. Now, you're not going to get this right out the bat, but if somebody says, man, I'm smelling blackberries or blueberry taste on this, and then you come and taste it, you can go, now that they mention it, yeah, I do taste that. So, and usually they'll have 4 or 5 different descriptive words. And over time, you'll learn to pick out the primary note, the secondary, the third level notes in there of taste. Thus, you're training that palate to heel, just like your dog, right? So, that being said, when we decided to take this to the breakfast table and coffee, we noticed that, okay, we've trained our palate. We know what we're tasting. We don't know anything about coffee. So like everybody else, we started with, Folgers and Starbucks and Black Rifle Coffee Company, all industrial coffee companies. And they all pretty much were single dimensional. That's all. All you could taste was pretty much burnt. So that didn't cut it. And we sat back and said, okay, what are we looking for in a wine, in a great food like Snake River Farms. This is a corned beef, second to none. To be able to taste the nuances and enjoy them thoroughly, right? You have to have a pretty well-developed palate and have an idea what you're looking for, what you like. And we did the same thing with coffee. And said, we want smooth as silk. In other words, no bitterness at all. Has to be smooth as silk. Now, when was the last time you had coffee, unless you're a customer of ours, that's smooth as silk without any bitterness? We wanted a variety of well-balanced flavors. In wine, you can get three major flavors out of the wine, but they're not balanced. So they don't complement one another. So we wanted in our coffee well-balanced, complementary flavors. For instance, we often get chocolate, sometimes dark chocolate. Some years it'll be milk chocolate. Sometimes will be a little bit of citrus in there. Particularly, we'll get cherry. So cherry and chocolate. I mean, what else goes? Or raspberry going great with chocolate. So we'll get those kind of nuances in the same thing. And what we found is the very smoothest coffees with the most well-balanced flavors consistently came from Central America. Doesn't mean the rest of the world doesn't have them. It's just Central America was more prominent than we saw in the others. And in Central America, Costa Rica. Costa Rica just knocked our socks off. We had a really hard time finding something we didn't like. And within Costa Rica, the Tarrazú region of Costa Rica is world-renowned for super smooth coffee that's a variety of flavors that are well-balanced and complementary. So what we did is we finally found one we absolutely loved, and we bought a bunch of that, and we enjoyed it a bunch. Eventually, we started the coffee business, and of course, we're going to buy from the Tarrazú region of Costa Rica, which what we do, and trust me, nobody else does this, we bring in 1 to 2 dozen different growers, beans from different growers in the Tarrazú region. So that's 2 dozen. That's somewhere between 12 and 24 different growers growing different beans with different flavors and different qualities. And we line them right up here on this counter. And we'll have 1 dozen to 2 dozen. And believe me, that's a lot of work trying to get them all the same temperature. And then taste test them. And we'll go, yeah, that's great. No, we're not going to do that. We're not going to do that. We're not going to do that. Maybe, etc. And we'll even take the final 2 to our sommelier, that's a wine expert, and say, what do you think? And he tell us what he's tasting. And together, we sit down and we pick 1 bean. So again, a vast majority, in fact, almost all coffee roasters never taste test the beans that they're going to buy. We go through a great extent to find the absolute best bean, and we finally decided, why bother going to all these other countries when we always pick the Tarrazú region of Costa Rica? So now we just bring in 1 dozen to 2 dozen from the Tarrazú region. We pick that 1 bean, and then we'll buy somewhere between 6,000 and 10,000 pounds to last our customers and us for the next year. And that's 100% of our inventory is not only from the same fields and the same farmer, but the very same lot number. That means they were all picked on the same day. So they taste incredibly good. It's kind of like when you compare our coffee or coffee of this quality, right, to everybody else's. It's like going from $2 Chuck to, like I said, a $50 French Rhone Valley GSM. Okay, so let's talk about freshness. A vast majority of the coffee sold in the United States is roasted and then put in a warehouse or on store shelves for months, if not years. So in our opinion, coffee, the freshness of coffee ought to be measured in hours, not months, certainly not years, right? So we roast and ship the same day. Now wine, on the other hand, let's face it, wine, if it's a white wine, you got 2, maybe 3 years. Some rare white wines, longer than that. So freshness isn't as much of an issue with wine, but age is. You get into a high tannic red wine, that bugger can lay down, in your cellar for 10 years, sometimes 20 years. It's great. But coffee, not so much. You want, once it's roasted, when it's green, last a long time, years. When it's roasted, you're talking, if you don't do something special, you can tell a difference 3 weeks after it was roasted. Big difference. You can sit back and go, whoa, that's not brand new. A month out is as far as you ever want to go with roasted coffee. Now, we have a special way that we package our coffee once it's roasted immediately into a bag that's airtight with an oxygen absorber. All preppers know that oxygen is the enemy of freshness. So we put an oxygen absorber and then heat seal the bag so it's airtight. Nobody else does this. That's why you can take our coffee, throw it in the back of a cupboard. 3 months later, you're not going to be able to tell the difference between the stuff that arrived today and the package you put 3 months ago in your cupboard. The other thing is, you could take that same coffee, throw it in the freezer, pull it out 6 months later. Can you tell the difference? If you had side by side, 3-day-old versus 6-month-old, and one was in the freezer, because of the way we package it, we don't use those stupid supposed one-way valves. Because of that, I can tell the difference. You probably can't. Some of you who have very well-developed palates, you can tell the difference. But the difference is so minor, you're not going to care. Now, that all being said, let's talk about aroma. Let's talk about food. Crying out loud. One of your taste buds, if you will, is smell. Your ability to smell that aroma really guides your taste buds. I'm salivating just thinking about sauteed garlic, or wine. You take wine, you pour it in a glass, and you see these guys, they swirl it and then they sniff it. Why? Because they're prepping their taste buds from that swirl. And it actually works. It makes a big difference. If you just sip it without tasting it, the taste difference could be 2 different kinds of wines, as far as you know. A great Pinot wine. My wife is Alisha, is a fanatic about Pinots, and she'll smell her way through an entire glass. It's actually kind of funny. Fresh roasted coffee. I used to hate coffee, hated it with a passion, but the smell was awesome, and I'm like, why can't coffee taste as well as it smells? Well, ours does. Now, almost lastly, I'm going to get down to QPR, quality per price ratio. Quality to price ratio. What that means, if I got to pay $300 for this, I'm not going to enjoy it near as much as if I paid $30 for this. Now, if I can get 2 wines, that a $300 bottle of wine and a $30 bottle of wine, and the difference is 2%, is it worth it? No. So I want the most bang for the buck I can get off my wine, my food. This Snake River Farms, this little bugger here is usually about $50. So we got it on sale for 20 something. So the quality per price ratio on this is off the charts. Our coffee, we've compared our Costa Rican, Terrazzo region coffee to Kona coffee. Now, Kona coffee, my cost on Kona coffee is like $27 a pound, right? So I'm going to double that, or anybody else is going to double or triple the price of that. You're going to pay $75 for a pound of Kona coffee and compare it to mine for $20, right? And guess what? I have bought the very best Kona coffee you can find out there. Compared it to ours, they were very different, but they were just as good. So the quality per price ratio is really important on whether it's wine, food, meat, whatever, and coffee. Now lastly, Lake City Coffee. I already talked about, we only have 1 bean, right? We have 1 bean, 3 roasts, pretty much end of story. What makes it unique is we've already picked out the very best bean, the smoothest bean with the most flavor that you're going to get, that is well balanced and complementary, those flavors that you're going to find just about anywhere. Good luck finding something better. And we're going to roast it and ship it the same day. That means when I take that box to USPS to ship to you, it's still going to be warm. Here's probably one of the best things that we offer that nobody else does. And that's 50% of the equation of a great cup of coffee is in the bean. Having the right bean, it's fresh, it's roasted perfectly, low and slow, which is what we do. Everybody else is hot and fast because they're idiots. They think that time is money. Time is not money. Time is time. Money's money. And there's times when you want to spend extra time, like we do, roasting low and slow. But 50% is in the making, learning how to make it. A vast majority of our website is about teaching you about coffee, teaching you how to brew coffee, how to grind coffee, how to taste test coffee, what brewing method should you use. That's most of our website. 300 articles on that. Nobody else does this. So that's Lake City Coffee. That's us talking about food, wine, and coffee, and how you can enjoy it more. If you have any questions, get in touch with us. We'd be more than happy to get back to you. Have a great day.